class is called sound right reasoning. What does sound, when you hear the word sound, anybody, what does that, what do you feel or hear when you hear the word sound? Funny, I say sound and then it goes all quiet. But even in that, there was still sound. But yeah, go ahead, brother. Please use the mic for the benefit of the listening audience.
In that context, would it mean solid?
I didn't put it into any context. I just said, what do you think about sound? But yeah, so that's definitely.
I would think sound, solid, confirmed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Frequency and vibration.
Sorry, go ahead. Whoever that was, one more time.
Frequency and vibration.
Frequency and vibration. Okay, that tell that.
I was going to say vibration and noise.
Vibration and noise. Okay. Yeah, so you're all correct. Sound is like you say, a sound foundation. You're building something, you want it to be sound. People said frequency and vibration, which is also true. But sound, does sound have to be audible?
No.
Okay.
No. There are some beings that can hear out of our sound spectrum, so like animals, for example, they can hear more than what a human being can hear.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. So in terms of sound, there is, as you say, with the human, we have a range that we can hear. We can still hear other sounds, but you might not be able to hear it audibly. So if you can't hear it, how do you know it's there? Vibration. Vibration. You can feel it. So in music, because when we say sound, sometimes people will think about music, right? Sound. Music has rest as well. So there is sound and rest, but every sound has a vibration and it decays, meaning that it can be loud and then it slowly fades away, but it's still there. I see Haptui is online. Rahubat Haptui. At least I've got a mod on Clubhouse now. Please let anyone up that wants to come up onto the stage and ask any questions. Okay, so that's sound. What about right? If I say right, because remember the title is Sound Right Reasoning. Right. What does that make you feel? Go ahead.
Maybe.
Sorry, go ahead, whoever that was. Okay.
Yeah, just wanted to say right would mean something in its correct amount in that context.
Thanks, Terry. Jamal. Okay. Go ahead, brother.
I was going to say the same thing. Now I'm going to say factual. Something facts.
Right.
Evidence.
Right. As opposed to left? See, so, I mean, English is tricky, right? But yeah, something that is not wrong, it's right. Okay, last one, reasoning. Reasoning.
Reality.
Reasoning can be the ability to process thoughts.
The ability to process thoughts. Excellent. Yeah, so you can even see ray in the beginning of the word, ray, sun, reason, R-E or R-A-Y, A-Y, like we say, ray, sun. And the sun, S-O-N, inning or reasoning is the active part of it. So you're doing something. Okay, so what comes before sound, right, reasoning in Wu-Sabat?
Right knowledge.
Right knowledge. Next, someone else. Right knowledge,
Good mind.
Right wisdom.
right wisdom, and
Right
A good
understanding.
mind.
Understanding.
right overstanding. So we get right knowledge. What's the opposite of right knowledge? It's not, I'm not trying to trick you.
Wrong knowledge.
Wrong knowledge, right. So,
Lies. Lies.
right, wrong knowledge. So we have right knowledge, right wisdom, and the right understanding that leads us to sound right reasoning. So what would you say wisdom is then? Right wisdom.
To be able to discern what's good and what's not good.
Experience.
Okay. So,
And working out from the experience the right course of action.
okay. Okay. So wisdom is the ability, as you say, to take the right knowledge and then you make wise decisions. Okay. So what's overstanding then? Right overstanding. Because we've differentiated the fact that you got sound right reasoning. But before you can get to sound right reasoning, you go through right knowledge, which takes you to right wisdom, then it takes you to right overstanding. So what is right overstanding?
Is it like a universal, more of a universal, like, I don't want to say the word understanding, but it's a universal type to a degree of, you raise above a particular statement because you can look at it from all angles, if that makes sense.
Mm. Why, you said you didn't want to say understanding, but this is right overstanding. So what I still want more for overstanding. Okay, so what's understanding? I'm getting you guys to work today. It's a interaction, a collaboration. Oh, so what's understanding?
You have a level of comprehension in a particular field or about a particular subject,
Mm-hmm.
and you can grasp whatever information you're being taught or being presented. And I would say right overstanding would be you're above that. But now
Okay.
that's been beneath you, so to speak, and you can raise above that information now to move on to whatever's next,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Absolutely. You might as well take the mic with you. Yeah, so when you say over, it means you're over something, or you've raised to a level that is not the level that others that are still under that information or under whatever that thing is. So if we just took a simple practical example, is it right knowledge to smoke?
No, no,
Nope.
Okay.
no.
So what would be the wisdom you would apply to that situation? If you say it's not right to smoke, the wisdom would be?
Maybe when you look at that situation, you have to keep in consideration the harmful effects of smoking, so that when you're explaining to someone, they're able to see the harmful effects of smoking. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So now you're looking at it, it's not right to smoke, but why? Yeah, the why is, like you say, is bad for my health. If I smoke, this is gonna maybe cause me health problems, etc. Now, overstanding in that situation. What's the overstanding?
Our body doesn't need smoke.
Cool. Okay. Now, the simple way of looking at it, somebody else wanted to speak?
No, I was just saying not to smoke. That's the overstanding.
Right. So when you say, I'm over smoking, I'm over it. You're over it. So now you've taken control of the overstanding is you're over it. You can use that example for any situation. You're over it. But if you're not over it, that means you're still under it.
Under.
It's still controlling you as opposed to you controlling it. All right. So what we're going to do, like I said, today is mainly going to be a Q&A, but because of the questions I see people asking in the groups, and like our brother Amunem he gave a nice breakdown in the Telegram group, just trying to explain to people that when you're asking a question or when you're thinking about things, if you're applying sound right reasoning, you will process the question before you ask it. I'll give you an example of how we're going to do a bit of practice on right reasoning. The master teacher put out the part for us. I'm just going to see if I can find the very first one. I mean, if I can't, I'll just paraphrase from what I can remember. In fact, I'll just go with that. He says, if there are two of you and you have a cow and you both want to drink milk, it is not wise to cut the cow in half. Can someone try and break that down for me? What does that mean? You both want milk. You have a cow. It's not wise to cut the cow in half. Why?
You won't have any milk if you kill the cow. No, you're not.
Because someone might reason and say, we both want milk. If we cut it in half, you'll have half and I'll have the half. But as you say, my good brother, it doesn't make sense because now you both won't have milk. The partarats are written in that way, but they're very simple, very clear. And the partarat, the way, that's what it means, the way. This is the way that you should do things. Not the way of the West or the way of anyone else's culture or the way they say it is, but our way, this is the way to do it. So it's very important to study and read the partarats. And I'm going to give you an exercise. So Donald Trump, the new American president, he says it's going to make America great again. Okay, so now, anyone, how would you use sound right reasoning with that statement?
I would ask, when was it great?
Oh, my brother,
Before.
you got it 100%. That's Wu-Sabat. Like the first thing you would do, rather than get caught up into the actual statement, the first question is, when was it ever great? When was it great? Because
Never.
Because if you go by the foundation of how America came to be America, who can give me the story? How did America become America?
1619, some Europeans went there, killed about 100 million Native Americans, and
Discovered it.
discovered it. Well, we know that we walked across there 51,000 years ago when it was Pangea, so
Right.
I don't know. That's
Yeah.
the
So sound right reason, before you get caught up in the hype of what he's gonna, it's like, excuse me, President, when was it great? Because they like to use this word, great, right? Great Britain, Alexander the Great, United States, united, and they're not united. Are they great?
No.
So, I mean, this is just like basic common sense, like when we use Wu-Sabat to look at things. Another one, people get caught up in a situation or a book, let's say the Holy Bible, and they might start to argue and fight about whether it's right or wrong and the different stories. But even before you get to that, the first thing you should do is what? Again, this is all critical thinking and using right sound, right reasoning. What does holy mean?
According to them, pure.
Okay. And is the Bible pure?
Definitely not.
It falls apart. So why would you call it the Holy Bible when it's not pure? And what does the word Bible mean?
Little book.
Depending on which language you're coming from, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Babel, Bible, confusion. So in fact, they're telling you that it's the pure confusion. That's just the title of the book. The means the only one, pure confusion. So before you even start getting into arguing and fighting and going into what it's saying, he's telling you at the beginning, this is pure confusion. So what do people do? They get confused by getting into it and reading it. And then even that, every word you read, it doesn't make sense. Genesis, they say, is the beginning. How can it be the beginning if it's only 6,000 years old? How? And also, the first line says, in the beginning, God created the heavens. Is anyone else on, I was trying to make someone on Zoom admin. Anyone else on there? Yeah.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm also.
So, I'm just going to make a model, or else there are people waiting to come in. Right. So, the master teacher is able to, because he's using sound right reasoning, he's able to show us and see things that you wouldn't have normally seen. Like, until he first said that, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He said, who's talking? Before he said that, none of us was thinking like that. Like, who's talking? Because he's talking about God. So someone is there telling you a story about what God was doing, because he said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, blah, 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 blah. So this is, again, sound right reasoning. It's about when you're looking or getting information or looking at a situation or even asking a question for that matter, are you actually like dissecting it and thinking about what you're asking and seeing if it actually makes sense? Of course, English doesn't help because English is by design to confuse you. Yeah. So another thing, okay, they say Jesus is this is what Christians say, the Alpha and Omega. What does that mean?
The beginning and the end.
Beginning and the end.
Right. The beginning and the end. Which doesn't make sense anyway, because Adamites, because he's a Caucasian, they weren't here first. So how can he be the beginning if Adamites came 6,000 years ago? So and how can he be the end when you haven't reached there? Because what is the end? End of what? None of it makes sense. The more, and these are just basic, simple examples on how they have our minds trapped to the point where people are not using sound right reasoning. So we're setting this up to when we get to the Q&A, actually use your mind, use your brain and think. And this is not to insult anyone. It's just showing you that the more you exercise sound right reasoning, the more things are clear and we can get straight to the point. So the teacher says, why, what, where, when, how. These are the things you have to use when you're asking questions, and make your question as direct and as simple as possible, because then the person listening to you is going to be able to answer the question. So it was actually interesting to see in the Telegram group that, you know, people, in fact, let me just have a quick look. Let's just go in the Telegram group quickly, see if there's any questions. And we might be able to use some examples. And I'm not by any means trying to put anybody off from asking questions, because this is to encourage you to ask questions and to think about what you're saying or what you want to ask.
Zamal, a second.
Sure. Joseph.
Yes, I have a question which is not related with the topic. I want to know if it's applied to ask right now or not.
Just give me, I'm literally going to be like maybe another 5 minutes with this introduction part. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay,
it's
fine.
Yeah. All right. So when we look at the Holy Tablets in comparison to the Holy Bible, what's the difference? Let's just look at the words, the title, the Holy Bible, the Holy Tablets. Go ahead, brother.
Well, it's pure facts with the Holy Tablets. For me, from what I've read, extremely detailed, and it goes back way longer, gives you science, gives you history, connects the, what if you want to say the religious part to it, but we know exactly what religious part is now, but it connects all of it together to make sense.
Okay, you see, again, we jumped. Great answer, by the way, but what does the word tablet mean? What's a tablet? Nobody knows what a tablet is.
When I think about a tablet, I think of a stone. So when you say certain words, obviously you have pictures inside your head.
Right.
I think of a stone. Unfortunately, sometimes I think of what's his name, Moses with the stone tablets.
Okay.
But it's then nowadays it's like a tablet, like a computer tablet as well. But I'm thinking of, when I think of that, I'm thinking of a stone, something written, carved in stone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yes,
Anyone?
a tablet is a flat stone used for writing.
You know what's funny about this, right? No one said it's a medicine. you take a tablet. That's what they call them, right? So the holy tablets is pure medicine that basically cure the disease of religion, of the pure confusion. Every monotheistic religion, in fact, religion expired with the coming of the Holy Tablets. So the Holy Tablets was like, okay, all that confusion, all that mess, all that stuff that you've been subjected to in religion, the Holy Tablets is clearing it all up. And then from that point, it's done. It's expired. Religion is expired. So there's nothing in those books that you really need anymore. Even what they consider to be miracles, things like walking on water. Men have done that now. There's Chris Angel, magicians, David Blaine, all these guys, they've done all the things that were considered to be miracles in the Bible. So the master says, look, give it all to you, it's done. You don't need this no more. You need the way now. So the amount of questions we get asked, the amount of questions we get asked about the Bible, the Quran, and Jesus, and Muhammad, and all these religious stuff, it's like, when you're new to Wu-Sabat, I guess, and you're trying to clear up the spell of religion, then that might be something that, if you can get hold of it, but you don't actually need it anymore. It's like the master says, it will take somebody a lifetime to master one religion. Do you really have time to spend 10, 15 years on Christianity, 10, 15 years on Islam, 10 or more years on Judaism and all these religions? No, you don't, especially when you have the medicine now, which is Wu-Sabat. So if you want to study and read all of that, that's down to you. But the master teacher's done all the work for you, so you don't have to. That's why people say, what if I missed all the 30 years from 1970 to the year 2000? He's like, it doesn't matter, because this is what I came to give you, which is the way, the hereafter doctrine, part of that actual fact and the master's secrets. Because you're going to spend all that time trying to talk about stories that they haven't even proven existed, talking about people that they haven't proven to exist. In fact, those are the universal book of the dead. Everyone in the Bible is dead. Everyone in the Quran is dead. Everyone in these religions and their characters are all dead. And it's about you're worshiping dead people and ghosts, channeling and giving your energy to these ghosts. So going back to sound right reasoning, does it make sense? A lot of people buy scrolls and they buy the books, and they keep the books on their shelf, their bookshelf. You should be keeping the, I see you, Tibbs. I'm almost done. This is the last couple of points before we get into it. You should keep your books in your mind, in your head, not on your shelf. So if you're studying and applying Wu-Sabat, it's important to realize that you become that embodiment of the knowledge that you're studying. So if you had a fire, a flood, or anything happened, or we had to move, you can go anywhere in the world, you should still have Wu-Sabat in your being and in your head, and not just sitting on the shelf collecting dust. So you're really supposed to study, read, so that you can teach. The master teacher gave us things like buy from each other and sell to everyone else. That's sound right reasoning. Last question. I'm going to touch on two more after this. Like, what's the purpose of money, would you say? This is another practice of sound right reasoning. What's the purpose of money? Anyone?
To
Is that
pay bills. To empower individuals and community.
Means of exchange.
I was about to say that's the dictionary or definitionary version of it's a medium of exchange.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, those are all great terms, but like I said, if we're looking at it from a very simple sound right reason, the purpose of money is to give it away. That's all you do with money, isn't it? You get it and you give it away. By giving it away, you get more. And then you give it away. You get more and you give it away. That's all it is. Because the more you give, the more you receive. But people have money stuck, or let's say in a bank or under their mattress. At some point, you're going to have to take that money out of the bank or from your mattress. You're going to give it away to someone. True?
True.
At some point, you're going to get, someone else is going to give you money. So you're just constantly giving money away. But people will think without sound right reasoning that it's about just accumulating it and just accumulating stuff, right? Right. One thing I touched on this on I think the last video I did with the critical thinking brother, Moses. And because he brought it up about the master teacher's guilty plea, right? And for those who have seen the video, because that was what they used to try and convince the masses and try and give this narrative that, you know, he said he was guilty. Because every time we speak to people and we explain and show them who Pana Babylon is, they come with that. And I said to Moses on the video, critical thinking, right, sound right reasoning. How is it that there was only that footage from that situation? There's no other footage, because when something's happening, like if something happened on the street right now, there'll be a lot of people with cameras. Different people will film it, different angles, whatever. So you will have more perspectives, different angles. Someone else that was there that will say, this is what happened. If there's only one, that's the only one. But yet, this was a closed courtroom. So it's closed to no one, but somehow someone manages to get this footage when the master's being coerced under duress. The sound is terrible. You just see nodding, and that's the one. But what I'm saying is, our people, or people in general who are not using sound right reasoning, they wouldn't stop and say, that's odd. Why is it only, why, like, if you had, say, the BBC was there, Al Jazeera was there, and somebody else was there, then you can say, you've got this from different people. But when it's just one, why can't you think it was concocted? Technology, whatever, you can, like, this is what I mean about with us. We're so easy to be fooled or beguiled because we don't exercise sound right reasoning. Because another one, last point now, the situation where in the case, they say they had surveillance on the master for 4 years before they approached him. Can you imagine having surveillance for 4 years, but you don't have any footage to show for your 4 years worth of surveillance? That should make you think. How does that make sense? The only footage they have is of him coming out of when he was coming out of the restaurant in Military or something. That's it for 4 years. But yet our people will fall for these kind of tricks or technology. So they will ignore all of the 1,000 books, all of the unity that he has managed to bring to the world, all the love, all the communities that have been built, all of that gets pushed to the side because of trumped up charges. But the real people who they read the scrolls and read these books and it touches your heart. And no matter what anyone is saying, you have to wrestle with that because the feeling, the vibration, the transformation that it has on you. Sorry, Masina? Is that somebody was trying to say something?
I apologize. I was communicating with my colleague. Sorry.
Okay, please mute your mic. So, yeah, so that's it. That's the introduction to set us up to ask questions in today's Q&A entitled Sound Right Reasoning, because you have a mind. You have, when you start to apply and study and put Wu-Sabat into action, you have the mind to be able to think and do anything. So, yeah, the first person, I think, Josie, you were the one with the question, and then we come to Tibbs, and then we can open it up to the rest of the family.
Yes, second,
So,
the question that I have is, who are the makers and what was the purpose of the pyramids in China, the Ellora caves in India, and Nazca lines in Peru? I know about Mexico, the name sells out, Teotihuacan, but China, Ellora caves in India, and Nazca lines in Peru. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, so you have many extraterrestrial beings and different beings that came to this planet and built many structures and, you know, embarked on many projects. And some of those were abandoned. And that's why you see like ruins of certain structures around the world. Other things were used in that time. So like the pyramids, they were used for many things. They were used as schools. They were used for charging up crafts. They were used for many things. So it depends on where on the planet you're talking about, but also a lot of the structures were used to balance out the planet, because you had, you know, like the European who didn't really know or understand about why the Parnatharu did certain things. They would just build things and put too much, the materials that were used would be too, it would put too much weight. You would put too much weight on one side of the planet. So eventually it will wobble. And so they will put other structures on the other side of the planet and even like knock them down and rebuild them with lighter materials. You see, also, there are many what they call the ley lines or the grid, the energy grid on the planet, where these structures were connected to each other in some shape or form. And so, you know, that the energy grid and the way that we utilize energy as, you know, the elders or the children of the elders, everything made sense. So it all depends on which structure you're talking about, where it is and so forth, but they all had a connection in some way, shape or form. So like I said, if you look along the ley lines on the planet, you will see that certain structures will be along those particular, you know, energy grids. Does that help?
Yes, very much. Thanks.
Yeah, so even like different races had different extraterrestrials come in here, and but obviously we, as the children of the Pantaru, we were here first, and you know, then you had people like the Anunnaki, and a lot of extraterrestrials came here and settled in different parts and tried to replicate their home life where, you know, where they came from. Yeah. I see Tibbs, I think you were second with a question or a comment.
Yeah, I got two questions actually. One is a comment. You talked about holy tablets. So I, from the past, I was told holy tablets is Bible, scriptures, Quran, anything that God used to guide people. So how would you say, what is holy tablets now?
Too well. What did you say about, you said something
Yeah.
about, I didn't hear that.
No, prior to this time, I was told that holy tablets is anything that God used to guide his people. Anything that has a word of God is part of a tablet or a bigger book. So that's what I thought holy tablets were. But you didn't explain what you wanted to say about what is holy tablets in this time, day and time. This is not my question.
Sorry, go on.
My real question will be after this, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, when I said the holy tablets, I'm referring to an actual scroll or a book that the master teacher, Partner Babyanun, Dr. Malachi Ziyuk, put out in the 90s. It's called the Holy Tablets. And it was a book that basically covers everything that you would need to know in, you know, up until the year 2000. So it covers, you know, people try to learn about the, you know, the different people, the different characters of influence on the planet. The Holy Tablets covers everything to do with the different like religions, science, history. It literally is a book that just brought religion to its expiration date as of the year 2000. That's what I was referring to when I said the Holy Tablets. But like some of the people answered, the tablets of like, you know, they show you Moses holding a tablet, and you know, like the Sumerian tablets and most of the information that worked his way into religion come from these ancient tablets, like the Enuma Elish, the Gilgamesh epic, you know, the Astrahasis, and a lot of the tablets that have been uncovered. All of that information is explained clearly in the holy tablets. You see, so the holy tablets I'm referring to is that book, that scroll. You can Google the holy tablets by Dr. York, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York. But as I said, that was for him to be like, rather than you waste your time, because he told us, I'm going to take you on a long walk on a short path. And he explained that when we asked. The long walk is the amount of information that you have to absorb, which has confused our people for the last 6,000 years. And religion being one of the tools that was used to do that. So he was like, I'm going to fast track you by giving you everything you need to know in one book so that we can close that chapter and move on to what he came to give us. Because from the year 2000 is the sun cycle, the coming in of the sun cycle, which is the time when our story is renewed and we're given back our correct way of life, our culture, you see. So all those dead books expired. So that was the purpose of him putting the holy tablets out, to kind of like draw the line and say, okay, cool, now we're going to move on to our way of life and the hereafter doctrine, which is now given us as of the year 2000. Obviously, he started doing that, and this is where they saw that he is that being that everyone's been waiting for, and they were afraid of the power of him uniting people with truth. So in 2002, May the 8th, they decided to kidnap him to try and stop this information and stop people waking up on the planet. But of course, it's pretty much too late. And so, yeah, that's what I'm referring to when I'm talking about the holy tablets. You said you had a second question?
Yes, we talked about the expiration of the script Bible, etc., and the
Yeah.
people never existed. Okay, what I was taught before now, what they were personifications of like spiritual things to happen, like Moses to be born. I mean, out of you will be born a new person. So they were not necessarily physical people. Jesus to be saved. So when you become aware, you're called Jesus. Not necessarily somebody walking around somewhere, but they were personifying certain spiritual things that would happen to every human being on earth. Would that also be something that has expired?
Yes. Again, you see, this is why I started off talking about using sound right reasoning, because you said I was told.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who were you told by, and what were you told? And who makes the person that's telling you the authority in terms of what they're saying? So when you say I was told, who were you told by?
Okay, when I said I was told, was we come with emptiness and we learn from everywhere. You're speaking, so I could say I was told by you. But when you get, like you said, you get knowledge, you put it to the test to say, is this right? Does it synchronize with whatever everything is in existence is? So it's not like I was told and I just went along with it. But
See,
this is
you're saying I was told and I went along with it.
no, I
And
say
you
it's not like I was told and I moved along with it. But
not,
I was
brother,
given information.
brother, you have to listen. Listening is also a very important aspect of receiving and learning. I'm saying, you said we in your statement, you were saying we, and you said I was told. And I'm saying to you with Wu-Sabat, we have to stop right there and use sound right reasoning and say, who told you? Because you said I was told. Who told you?
You want the name of a person? Right?
Yeah, well, go ahead. It doesn't really, I'm saying like you're getting the information from somewhere, aren't you? When you said I
Yes.
was, right. So who told you?
Um, church,
right?
affirmations, self-awareness trainings.
Okay. Church, this is what I'm saying, that the religious world and the religions you're talking about, when you say church, are you talking about being a Christian?
Yes, but we say like following the teachings of Jesus Christ
You
rather
see,
than being a Christian.
this is so important. This is what I'm saying about sound right reasoning. You said following the teachings of Jesus Christ, but somebody told you that's a story. Because you never saw or met Jesus, did you?
No, no.
So you're going by hearsay. Do you know the difference from hearsay and actual facts?
The actual facts should be proven. Hearsay would be things that have not, we don't know where they come from.
Right, exactly. So with right knowledge, what we say is someone is telling you something without any confirmations, without any facts. And somehow we just accept it. And we accept it as if it's true, when in actuality, there's no evidence. It's all based on hearsay. So when you go to anything that is important, it's based on facts and evidence. Like you can't turn up in court based on, if someone accuses you of something and it's based on hearsay, it's got to be based on facts and evidence, because you can't judge somebody based on, I heard that they did this. You see, so what we're saying is these books have expired. The Bible, the Quran, and these monotheistic religious books are based on information that's been passed down from people to people, from generation to generation. And when you go to the origins of where they come from, you can easily find out that they are not based on actual facts. So that's why I'm saying that you cannot just go by what you have been told. That's why I said you personally have never met or seen. In fact, no one has produced evidence of this person called Jesus.
That was what I was trying to say. I was not told he was a person. I don't believe Jesus is a person.
Okay, so have you read the Bible?
Yes, a few times, yes.
So you don't read anything about him being a person, and he was born by Mary and all of, you don't know that information?
Yeah, but Mary was not taught me as a woman. She was a vessel that salvation comes through. So I was told, or we learned that my body is Mary, and inside me is salvation.
Does that make sense to you? Your body is Mary.
Yeah. When I say body, not necessarily physical body.
Anyway, look, this is what we're doing here is exactly the topic of the class, because I'm trying to explain to you how these books were designed to put you under a spell, the spell of ignorance and the spell of religious opinions. Sorry, I'm just letting some people in. Religious opinions with no evidence or any facts. And then when you start to dissect them, people start saying things like, it's a different account and a different story to what's actually written. So they will say this book is from God, and that God is the all-knowing, all-wise, etc., right? And stories are in this book. And if you don't accept the book, then you're making up your own stuff. You're making up your own stories if you don't accept the word of God or the books that have been written. But you see, this is exactly why I'm trying to not get caught up in the back and forth about the book as if it exists in facts when it's not. And the stories are not confirmed. And then people will start to make their own stories up when you start to challenge what they're saying. They're accepting as if it's true when it's actually not true. So then you get into the thing of, you say you're a Christian, right? But then there are other Christians who will disagree with what you're saying.
I don't think I'm a Christian.
Okay, so you said you learned this in the church.
Yeah. Yes, I
So
learned.
you went to church, but you were not a Christian.
Wow. Okay. I went to the mosque, I went to the church, I went to different places, and I learned a few things from here and there.
So
I
today,
see.
do you consider yourself to be a part of those religious organizations?
No, not at all.
Okay, so how did you get to the point of not accepting those anymore?
Okay, I I learned from a few people to understand scripture as more like spiritual description of things that will be at the end.
Right. What's a spirit?
An energy, different form of energies.
Okay. So do you have to be religious?
No, not at all. You don't need to be religious.
Okay. So what I'm basically saying is that, going back to the question about the holy tablets has cleared up all the misinformation that people believe, because the word belief is not based on facts and evidence, it's based on hearsay. That's the point I'm really making. But the stories that you're being told are not true. And you know they're not true because when you do the research, you find where they got those stories from. And that's how you get to the fact of this story existed millions of years or thousands of years before this new one.
True.
And I copied it from that one. And now you're believing this story as if it's real when it's not. But I don't want you to, I don't want to hug up the whole class with that. But
Okay, can I just say one quick thing, please? Please.
go on.
Okay, I studied the Bible and I was told at the end the new scripture would come out and the old things will pass away. So based on what I learned from the Bible, I was expectant. And when the Jehovah Witness did some calculations, it didn't fall in line with 2020. They came a bit off. So I knew there'll be a time where all scriptures would go. So what I know of scripture, Bible, Quran, etc., would be rolled away like scripture says. So I was very expectant as this being real. When I saw Wu-Sabat, then I said, okay, this makes sense. Here we are, we're crossing this boundary. So my question then was, do we then scrap everything of the past, or is this not what we use to draw people out of the past into the future?
No, you're right. Wu-Sabat is the future. Wu-Sabat is that. That's what I was explaining to you, that Wu-Sabat is that which was prophesied or people were predicting to say when it comes, right? When the truth comes, all false things shall perish. That's what's happening now. So Wu-Sabat is that. And we are just trying to explain to people that are still maybe undecided or caught up in those old religions that Wu-Sabat is here now. So you're making the right decision and choice by, stepping into Wu-Sabat. This is where the journey continues. But we're just saying to people that don't spend so much time and energy on those dead books that are the past. Now you need to step up and move into Wu-Sabat and start to apply Wu-Sabat in your life, because that is the answer to what you've been waiting and looking for. All
Okay,
right?
thank you very much.
You're welcome. Right. Anyone else? Today is your opportunity to ask your questions. But bear in mind, sound right reasoning, because you know, you can hear and start to get into a dialogue and just go around in confusion and loops and circles, and it doesn't get you anywhere. So Wu-Sabat basically comes to dispel and make everything clear, and you know, give you that salvation, that liberation, and that which you've been searching for your whole life. And the master teacher has been sent to kind of give you that and bring us together as humanity on the truth. And there are so many of you in the class, so I'm sure you must have. Let me look at the chat just in case people are.
You have a hands up on Zoom.
Oh, sorry. Let me
Tips.
stop sharing, and I'll be able to see you. Okay. Sorry, yeah. Tibbs has got his hand up still. Is that from before, or is that a new question?
I've got a full book full of questions. So if nobody has, I would like to give others the opportunity. But if nobody comes up, I've got tons.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, this one is yeah. In the Nation of Islam, and we were told that the original man writes his history in 25,000 years, and it goes like it synchronizes with the circumference of the earth. So, if the Holy Bible is not holy and original, what is that original book that we're given for this period?
It's called Patarak.
Patarak came 2020, I mean, before for the 6,000 year period.
That's what I'm saying to you. Like, well, let me explain that. So,
okay,
the 6,000 year period that you're referring to, because with the Nation of Islam teaching, they were saying that the Quran will, the 24,000 that you're talking about is talking about the Quran's going to travel around the planet, right? Because the circumference of the planet is 24,000 miles. 24 is a very significant number because it's dealing with this planet and the project of this planet called Project 24, which is why the number 24 is like dealing with the time period after 24,000 years when everything will be renewed. So the last 6,000 years of that 24,000 years is what we're referring to as the moon cycle, which ended in the year 2000 AD. So all those religions and the Quran would have expired by that time. And that's what the master came teaching. And the new sun cycle started coming in 1999, because the last part of the devil's rule was really from 1966. You go back and look at what was happening in 1966, and the fact that they tell you about the devil, the mark of the beast is 666. It ties into the Church of Satan being given permission to run by Ronald Wilson Reagan in 1966. And all of these things were, like 666 was the end, but it still took a period of time where they were asking for extension. So 1999, right, because they were telling you about the year 2000, about, you know, things that like the computers were going to go crazy, and remember the millennium bug and all these kind of things were being spoken about, because from the year 2000 was the beginning of a new sun cycle. So when we say 24,000, you're talking about 6,000 years of a sun cycle, 6,000 years of a moon cycle, 6,000 years of a sun cycle, and then another 6,000 years of a moon cycle, the last one. Those 6 times 4 gives you 24, right? So everything was around the extraterrestrials that knew the coming of this sun cycle, which a lot of people spoke about, but they didn't actually know the full details. So all those leaders or teachers that you're speaking about, like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he was actually part Grey, right? And he was able to tell the Nation of Islam about the next person that's going to come along. And he was like, this is the person you need to look out for. This person's going to bring this new scripture called the Book of Lamb, right? That's the holy tablets I mentioned at the beginning. And he's going to come and he's going to renew our story. And we're going to get back our rightful culture. And this is where we're at now. So, yeah, that's dealing with that 24,000 of the planet, I mean, of the Quran traveling each mile around the planet. And you start to look at 24, as I said, you've got the Project 24, the 24-hour clock deals with the 24 elders, deals with how many cells you have in your body, dealing with your genome. The Genome Project is 24,000 genes, which they use to decipher, you know, what people are made up of. Every little part of your body can now be broken down in terms of your DNA. So does that help?
Yeah, thank you very much. It does.
Okay. Linky, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Rahubat Sama.
Rahubat.
On the Master Secrets, the M other circle of existence,
Mm-hmm.
may you please help me and elaborate 103 and 105, please?
Could you read it? I don't have it with me, please, if you don't mind.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
So 103 says, as a result, one orb ball globe connected to another, form growing from itself outward, and number 8, or I don't know if that sign is a star, but it has, yeah, 2, 4, 6, 8 arrows, seen as infinite, or 8.
So what was the name of the Master Secret?
The M other, yes.
I'm just trying to see if we've got it here, but I couldn't really make out what you were saying. But maybe Tui or Usir, if you guys have it, if you can, or anyone who's got it, because yeah, just read it again, please, so I can hear what you're saying.
Okay. As a result, the orb ball globe connected to another form growing from itself outward, a number 8, or I don't know what that sign is. I don't know if it's a star, seen as infinite, or 8.
Zamaltat, sorry, I've got it now. Can you just tell me the page number and the verse you're referring to, please?
12, and then 103 and 105, please.
Okay, I've got
Page
it. So
12.
103. So let's go back. Okay, all right. So okay, I'll go from 100 because it's good to build into it. So it's saying that it's showing you, it's really talking about the Big Bang. So it says, then decreasing or collapsing inward as did the Big Bang into a black hole that birthed this one Wahoo Mach 1 universe. 101, consecutively, the exact opposite actions to reactions, contractions as in birth pains, be it this Wahoo Mach 1 universe, a child or your Mukrad, child. 102, this means that a perfect orb has no angles and no imperfections in its form and control, and on the surface of an orb, there is no ending. All motion creates orbs, circles, or cycles. Dawar at cycles spin anything. Right, so you want to know from 103, right? As a result,
yes, please.
As a result, one or ball globe connected to another form growing from itself outwards, a number 8 or 8 seen as, okay, I get it now, as 8. It shows the infinity sign, or 8, the symbol of infinite. That's what it's saying, which symbolizes eternity, eternity, and ayantui, infinite. Now, note infinite and infant and infinity. So what this is explaining is about how universes are grown or formed, or how they are birthed, okay? And the cycles or circle, because when you look at the word circle and look at the word cycles, they're related. And it's using the number 8 to show you that that's that symbol that they use to say infinity, or their unlimited possibilities. So it's really talking about, it's talking about how a circle, because even when you look at it as an 8, if you were to turn that 8 and not twist it, you're going to get a perfect circle. And a circle is a symbol of perfection, right? This is why they say it's 360 degrees, meaning completion. But as he's going on to explain, is that the circle that is representing completion in terms of the physical is one completion. But then you have, or what we would say, the seen world, but you have another world which you don't see it, but it exists, right? So in simple terms, people will say the spiritual world. And in scientific terms, they will tell you that that's going into the realm beyond what they call hydrogen, which goes into ether. Yeah. The ether, or the etheric world, is what today most of the scientists are starting to delve into, but they don't have the knowledge or the science, because it's our information as the 9 ether beings, you see. So the number 8 also is a representation of the male, whereas the number 9 is the representation of the female, or when I should say, the Nagaru, or the Negroid female. So the Negroid female births a child, and from her is where everybody comes from, you see. So this is just explaining to you the similarities, or how when you look at a universe, because remember, uni means once, and it comes from a dot that spirals outwards, and then from that you get jewel. So when you look at a circle, although you're looking at the circle as a completion, it has to start somewhere with a dot. And then on page 12, it actually shows you that dot. And even though you start and you draw a circle, the circle itself is actually composed of dots, smaller dots, because everything vibrates and everything is composed of atoms. So only the person who draws the circle knows where it starts and where it they would say end, but it just goes around in the circle. So yeah, this is really the master explaining, because you kind of have to read before and carry on reading to continue, because if we carry on and say from verse 104, it says, now note, infinite is related to an infant, as in a child, right? And infinity and infancy. These are words, sound games played on the mind, not coincidence, or two incidents, two circles. All right. So endlessness in space and matter, or mature, right? So you're going from an infant to someone that's mature, and it ties into maternity, maternal, material, matter, and then mother. You see, mother is where the title of this scroll is coming from, where you have M. When you look at the word mother, you have M, other, because the other is the female, as the goddess, is the only one that produces another or other being, you see. And so she's the only one that grows a being. So 106 says, the numbers, sum of all circles in degrees and contour adds up to 9. Yeah, remember I said that the woman is symbolic of the number 9. became like 9. If you look at the circles, 360 degrees, which is equals to 9, because you add 3 plus 6 plus 0, you get the 9. It symbolizes origins. The O from origins and the opposites. Yeah. So 9, 2, like the 9 in reverse becomes 6. So you see 0, 1, which is antimatter or etheric existence, and 10, which is matter or physical atomic. So as I was saying, when you start to go into like the energies, this is what the word nashat or nashat-at, if you're doing it as plural, the nashat-at energies of existence of all life and living, death and dying, physical and spiritual, mortal and ghost. And then on page 13, it starts to give you what I was saying, where you got H1 being hydrogen, which is gas, yeah? Then you go into helium, and then, gives you the atomic elements. But as you delve into the other side, you start to go into what we call ether, which is, basically dealing with where everything comes from, and everything is, they say is infinity, but they don't really know, because we're really dealing with 9 being the highest number, as in 9 to the 9th power of 9. Yeah, so I hope that's given you some clarity.
Yes, it has. Thank you.
Okay. And takathirafo. Right. Any other questions? Yeah. Who's speaking? NY. Oh, you're in Clubhouse. Sorry, I did. Yeah, go ahead, Zama.
Yeah. I have a question. It's going to ask this. Who gave the devil 6,000 years and why?
Who what? Sorry, to the devil?
Who gave the devil 6,000 years to rule?
Right.
Why?
Yeah. In fact, it was our ancestors, or the Panatharu. And it wasn't like, but basically, it was an experiment, in the sense that these were created for a specific purpose. The Pleiadians, well, the reptilians they were eating the Pleiadians, right? And so they wanted to solve that problem, because the Pleiadians were asked, they asked the reptilians to stop eating them if they were given a different food source. And they agreed to that. And they had to come to us, our ancestors, to ask and get the formula. You can read a lot about this in the, have I got it with me? In the 18 plus 1, you actually have 18 plus 1, 37 genes of the mitochondrial DNA. It's an actual fact, number 22. So, but there was a divine plan, because although our ancestors agreed, they also had a plan to wipe out the reptilians, the disagreeable reptilians that were causing havoc on the planet. So it was like they were going to give them, they gave them the formula to create a different food source. This is where the Bible is talking about, they say Adam, but they're talking about this graftation of the Adamites 6,000 years ago. And the point was that they were going to see if they could actually reform them within that 6,000 years, because they were causing too much chaos on the planet. But then there was also a plan that when these reptilians ate these newly created beings, that they will in turn also get wiped out. But there was actually a divine plan to that. And so this is where, when the Bible is talking about the creation of Adam, right, they're talking about these Adamites. And okay, in a minute I'm gonna read a little piece from the scroll I mentioned, but they were talking about this graftation, and they were given 6,000 years, because he said that they were given dominion to name everything. And whatever Adam, that's what they say, whatever Adam named the thing, that's what it was called. And they were given this 6,000 years during what we call the moon cycle. And but the Natharu, our ancestors, already had a divine plan, which was to program their telomeres to fade out after 6,000 years. And this is what's unfolding right now, where, you know, the fertility rate, because these Pleiadians, they're the ones that Hitler was in contact with and trying to create this, what they call an Aryan race. So to answer your question, it was actually a divine plan to not only have them as a food source for the reptilians, but for those reptilians to eat them, and then for them also to be wiped out. So let me read from this actual fact, number 22, 18 plus 18 plus 1 equals 37 genes of the mitochondrial DNA. And I'm going to read from page 7. In fact, let me go back one. From verse, I'll go from, actually, I might have to read a little bit more to bring in the point. Okay, I'll go from 24. So it says, the 223 uncovered extraterrestrial genes is how they, the sons of Elohim, God, Anakim, were able to take earthling women and birth evil, wicked children, right? Recorded in their Bible, verse 25, Genesis 6, verse 1 to 5, Matthew 1, 18 to 25, and Luke 2, 1 to 7. And made very clear that Bain Elohim, sons of God, Strong's number 1121430, chose only the females of Bath Adam, daughters of earthlings, Strong's number 1323, to breed with, right? And that's Genesis 3:15. I'm going to skip the quote and go to verse 26. So it says, so this mixer proves that these Bani Elohim, sons of God, had the same amount of chromosomes, which is 46, 23 pairs, right? Same blood, breath, genomes as the daughters of Adam, or the earthlings, Adamites, Cainites, Sethites, Enoshites, not just one person, but a tribe. So it wasn't just one person called Adam. So when he says in Genesis 5:2, male and female created he them and blessed them and called their name Adam in the day when they were created. So Adam was a race, a slave race, workers by use of the word till, right? Because it talks about till the ground, or abd, slave, which is Strong's number 5647. And it goes on in Genesis 3:23, it says, therefore the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till, be a slave, the ground from whence he was taken. The Habar, Hebrew name, Amal, Strong's number 6000, is the same as Shumar, Sumerian, Amilu, worker, right? Right, so then it goes on, this is how it's done, genetic evolution, being that come to a people, beings that come to other beings from older worlds with stronger genes to breed in with them, becoming their gods. And if it was a female, she would be their mother and goddess. This was taking the Kakasu, Caucasoid race by their Elohim, not the Nagaru, the Negroid race, existing long before 6,000 years ago, or 4,000 BCE. The Elohim, Anakim, or the Shumar, Sumerian Anunnaki from Nibiru, their planet, Kabad, craft. Now, this bacteria that was given to the hominid, the genome by Parnatharu from the Orions, and later by the Anunnaki, the Anakim or the Kamau, Pleiadians, was done by way of a series of sexual contacts and exchange of divine fluids as a form of infections, by way of Parmafkuzat for breeding, or by disease such as Baras, leprosy, albinism, to infect, until eventually they were accepted and absorbed. Trying to jump to the There's a particular bit that I want to find. So the Pleiadians, I'm trying to get to, there's a particular part where it's talking about the reptilians.
So I'm asking this to say,
Yeah, go ahead.
how would I explain all this to my grandmother in Ghana about this knowledge that I'm acquiring? I mean, this is huge. And my grandmother never went to school and can't read and nothing like that. So if I have to understand this and break it down to my grandmother.
Or, I mean, it's simple. All you have to your grandmother, you don't have to go into so much detail. You're just going to explain it in a simple way that the Bible is not authentic in terms of these were stories and these were lies that were told, and then you will explain it. Like, I mean, in terms of, like, Adam wasn't one person. It was Adamites. But the thing is, even in the English, you can explain that because they don't teach you about who the people are talking about. When he says, let us create man in our image and after our likeness, created male and female, created them. You see, it's more than one person. But in the way they explain it, it's like they're telling you like it's singular, but all throughout it's more than one. So the best way is for you to get it and then you simplify it. But the main thing that a grandmother would need to know is that in terms of what she's been taught to worship and wait for, this Caucasian or white Jesus to save her and to understand about her ancestors, that, where she's going to, it's not this fictitious place called heaven and the way that it's been sold. So it's you getting the knowledge of the whole story of what happened and then breaking it down in a very palatable or simple way. So it depends on what it is you're trying to explain to her. Like, to tell her that the Europeans put this book together and it was copied from our ancient stories, but then the bits they didn't tell you was, that, like, it's not singular. You just have to break it down in a way that, but more importantly, it's about your example and you applying Wu-Sabat. And, by your example is what will help her.
Okay, see, I was a Christian, and this grandmother taught my mother.
Yeah.
And my mother taught me.
Yes.
It is Christianity. Too many churches I went, and I always felt there's something missing.
Right.
I always have this inside that I felt that there's some truth that this Christianity or the so-called Bible, there's something missing.
Yes.
So if my grandmother was able to teach my mother, and my mother also taught me and was always saying Jesus Christ is coming, so repent your bad ways, and so now I have to go back to my grandmother, mom, and reteach everything that I'm learning here as Wu-Sabat, even the language, because I learned that when our ancestors come with a craft, we have to be in this long dress, in the white long dress, and how is my grandmother? How can she get this information? I mean, not only my grandmother, there are a lot of people in Ghana where I am from.
You're right. This is what
I'm now going to break this down to this community about Wu-Sabat to change their mindset from Christianity and Islam to understand this doctrine or the truth or this tribe.
Yeah. Well, truth is truth, isn't it? The truth. Yes. So if you're giving someone the truth about and taking away the lies they've been taught, and they can feel it, they can actually resonate with it because it makes sense. As you said, something was missing, right? In religion, something was missing. And what was missing is the fact that you weren't connecting with your ancestors and connecting to yourself. So if you show her the lies of the Europeans, and remember that Wu-Sabat is the future. So you're not on your own. Like there are many people that are waking up, and the more people wake up, the master teacher, Partner Babyanun, is the best teacher. And the best thing is to let her listen to the recordings that the master teacher has put out. You know, so we as student teachers, this is our job, and that's why, and I mean all of us, everyone on the call, because you have to learn and make it clear. And I try my best sometimes to try and simplify things in the way that someone can relate to it, because it's actually in you already. It's in your DNA. It's actually, it resonates with you see. So all you're doing is turning them on,
Yeah, it's true, but you know, this doctrine and all these books that the master teacher has been teaching and taught them, all these books that he wrote, man, you really have to be, if I would put it in a simple, in simple words, I would say, Wu-Sabat had to have a university to teach from class 1 to so that you can graduate to be a teacher yourself, to create your own church and recruit people in and put this knowledge into their heads. And
that's a work with what to do. And the thing is, you're not on your own, because the way the master has taught us, he already has the formula. All we have to do is follow it. So you're looking at it from the point of I take it you're quite new to it, right? You're quite new to Wu-Sabat.
Yeah, I'm pretty new, but
how long would you say you've been in Wu-Sabat?
Say a couple of months, not even a year. Let's say 9 months to 10 months now.
Right. So
and I've been reading, I've been listening a lot, but it's the books that the master teacher has written. It's a lot that it can even take you 10 years to read all these books and get the understanding to pass it on to.
Yeah, but you don't have to you don't have to read all of. You can read one book and pass what you've learned from that one book on to people. Wu-Sabat is very clear. It's common sense in terms of like the path or act anyway. So there's obviously higher information, higher sciences, but there's also very basic information that you can use. That's why the master teacher broke information down, you know, in the small scrolls first, like the what people call, you know, like the Christ series, for example. The Christ series deals with the you know, like the basics of religion. So you're right, and then you have like the supreme mathematics, and you have obviously now the actual facts, Patriarchs and Masters secrets. So you have to start with the things that, like, he's got a title in the book for every aspect or every question that you may ask. You see, so if you say, for example, who is God? There's a book called Who is God? If you want to know what is heaven, there's a book that explains what heaven is, or where's hell. There's a book for the basics information, like, you know, talking about Jesus, talking about, you know, Abraham, Moses, whatever it is that you've learned in religion. He has actually written a book to give you the actual facts, you see? And so you have to start with the basics, and then once you actually get that information, it's easy for you to then pass it on to other people. You see, so you can't run and, like, even before you go out to start, as you were saying, set up a university or set up a church or anything like that. You first of all yourself have to be groomed. You have to, you know, learn. It's a process. It's not overnight, but at the same time, you can read one book in Wu-Sabat that will answer all the questions that you've ever had in terms of religion. You see, so it's actually quite it's really based on common sense as well. Like, for example, if you spoke to your grandma, you would be saying things like, where is heaven? According to the Bible, where is heaven? You see, basic things like that. No one, they will tell you, they will just say up there. But when you read it in our scrolls, the master will say, look, it actually tells you in the Bible is a place called Orion or Orenos, which is the Orion constellation. And you can be like, oh, you see that up there, Grandma, those stars with the three, the belts of Orion, that's what they're talking about. Our ancestors are there. This is what they're trying to tell you, but they just don't have the information. So they're going to just say it's up there. And that's just one example.
So now the whole confusion is in my tribe, in the Fanti tribe, in Kakwari or Cape Coast, the Fanti tribe.
Yeah.
Our language, we have like all these teachings from the master teacher. We have it in our language. The stories that was passed on from our ancestors to us, even to me, is because most of the Africans, we shift our ways of our ancestors, and we shift to the white or the European way.
Yeah.
We see them to be the better than even ourselves.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So
yeah,
that's not true though, is it? That's what we were taught.
Not true.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what people believe for many years. And that's why we're here to break the spell, because now everybody knows that when you just look at the world in every aspect, whether you're dealing with sports, music, creativity, that's not even going into our melanin and why we are the fathers, the mothers and fathers of everyone on the planet in terms of the DNA. So I'm saying that you can tell somebody something and it's a lie, or you can tell them the truth. And the lies are that whole, that white, blonde hair, blue-eyed Jesus, that's your savior, that's going to come and save you. And people have waited thousands of years for him to come back, and he hasn't come back, and he's not coming back. And so you have to start to show them the technology of how they came to our lands and lied and basically enslaved people mentally and physically, and have been controlling your mind to have you believe a bunch of lies until now, when the truth.
My question is,
yeah,
I don't catch it, but so where were our ancestors that time that the Europeans came to Africa to enslave us and to trick us and all that? Where were they? Why would they look at down to us and for us to go through all this suffering and all these tears and all that, all this?
Yes.
And to know that they were given 6,000 years by our own ancestors to rule us, and now that we have, because if we look down there in Africa, the land is rich, but the people are poor.
We're not poor. That's what I'm saying to you. I know what you're saying, but you see what it is that we're thinking 6,000 years in our time is a long time. But when you're talking about millions of years and you're talking about 6,000 years or 24,000 years, 6,000 years is actually quite a small period of time. But nevertheless, even though it's small, you're still saying, why did we go through and suffer and go through these things? Because we actually allowed ourselves under the moon cycle. The spell it wasn't like it happened overnight. Remember that they came. All right, I actually literally did a video the other day and the same topic came up.
Because when I was born, I didn't know all this.
Right.
I was born into it. So
that's what I'm saying. So
yes,
you have to remember, before we were exposed to what you would call evil and wicked and these things, we didn't actually know what that was, right? Because we were living in a place that was peaceful, We had everything. We didn't, you know, in terms of the nature, we were under the sun. We had all the minerals, everything you need to make what they've come and taken to make wealth in the West. We had all of that. We didn't even know what evil was. But these beings came here, right? And you read this in Genesis, which I was reading just now, which is explaining how they came, raped and mixed in with those original beings that were living in a place called Nupu, which was the green zone. And these beings, foreigners that came in, they brought the evil and the wickedness and all of that. So they actually were then contained in a zone called Zupu, known as the red zone. And they were now, because it became rampant in terms of the spread of their wickedness, because if you don't know evil and you've never seen evil before, you're not prepared for it. So what I'm basically saying is that it was foreign to us during that time. And it was only after we got exposed to the wickedness that we kind of knew what that was. So the elders, they were like, okay, we're going to quarantine these beings in this zone called Zupu, and they weren't allowed to come out of that or then mix with the green zone. But in the end, they did anyway. And now there's confusion on the planet because those original beings, which we know as Pataites, they were very peaceful beings. They were part of nature. They now, so it kind of got crisscrossed where you had people from Zupu going into Nupu and people from Nupu going into Zupu, and it was just like spreading and creating chaos on the planet. And they were like, okay, the experiment that we have done, because they would, remember, people think when they're going from a religious mindset that God knows everything. This is what they teach you in the Bible. God knows everything. He can wave his fingers. He creates. But these gods that they're teaching you about are these extraterrestrial beings that I'm talking about that came here. They tell you about the Nephilims coming down, giant in those days. They came down and they mixed with these daughters of men. And that's the Pataites that we're talking about. So when they did that, it tells you in their books that God looked at that and said, it grieved him that he had created this being that was weak and wicked. And now he was going to wipe them out. And it tells you it wasn't going to be done by like flooding as previously, but that he was going to do it with fire. The fire they're talking about is the sun. So this is what's happened, but our ancestors already planned it by putting into their DNA, into their genetics. They program these telomeres, right? Which is what gives you the length of how long you live. At the end of the chromosomes, the telomeres were like, after 6,000 years, they're going to start to be wiped out or fade away. And so that's what's going on. And that 6,000 years came to an end in the year 2000. So their fertility rate is really low now. And the sun, they talk about it, talking about global warming and talking about the rays of the sun, which are now, and if you go to like the books of Malachi, chapter 4, verse 2, is talking about the sun cycle, this time that was going to come in. Now, the thing is, we can sit here and continuously talk about the past and how we were, you know, put into that mental slavery or the spell it was a concentrated effort for them to cast a spell on us. And you're talking about these Anunnaki beings that came and they were controlling people by way of, you know, using frequencies and vibrations. And they were sending these frequencies from Nibiru, controlling the people. So it was a hypnotic spell. It's the spell of Leviathan, which is a spell of sin. And they introduced killing and murder and bloodshed and all these things to us. And I'm saying we can dwell on the past, or we can look at the future and look at now, because that time has come to an end. And now people that are still caught up in religions, even though they now know the truth and they know about slavery, they know about colonialism, they know about all these things that the European did, and you come and tell them it's all lies, and some people are still not waking up. So it's the job of those that are waking up to help those that are still asleep. And that's where you come in.
Yeah.
That's all of us come in. This is our job now. Like, all we have to do is unite because the master teacher is here. Let me just read something for you because it relates to what I was trying to say before. So it's talking about why they hate us, right? It says, this is why they hate Nagaru, the strength of the Nagaru Negroid's genome and the weakness of the leper's curse. And going to this from page 77, 160, it says, Pareye, the sun cycle, this is what we're talking about, when the sun cycle progresses through the hereafter. The sun will have more bursts, and they know that their skin can't protect them, right? And 161, this is also why the Caucasoids of New Babylon, America, does not want the Negroids to leave or return to Afafreye Ka'a, Africa. They don't mind black leaders. Sorry, excuse me. They don't mind black leaders, right, who teach that you should stay here, or it's part of ours, or we were here first, the latter being true. Yes, they love them, but if a black leader teaches we need to go back home to Afafreye Ka'a, they kill or imprison them. 162. The question is, why don't they really want separation? Because your ancestors, the Panatharu, will wipe them off the planet Taha, Earth. So they keep you near, close, and mixed out of fear of their removal completely. I have told you many times that their time is up. 163. And it is your ancestors, Panatharu, that ensured your survival. Nagaru, by intercepting your cells, giving you this protection from the ultraviolet rays with this divine DNA by way of the cells, the mitochondria. 164, completely independent of the nuclear DNA and not in any way involved in the functions which benefit the cell, extraterrestrial DNA. You see, Nuapis, this proportion of the mitochondrial DNA serves as a conduit through which our formation is received. So it is, to a certain degree, an organelle that is not only independent within the cell, but independent of the cell's own genetic outformation contained within the nucleus information. This extract can be read in its clear as mitochondrial DNA, while scoring human DNA for the origins of replication or duplication centers as in the transformation. It was discovered by your ancestral scientists that unlike other DNA, mitochondrial DNA happens to have a distinctive circular structure so that it is extremely clear that beings from outside this realm can use this circular structure to conceal their insertions. This concealment allows these genes to replicate under their own steam and so maintain their independence from the human organism while at the same time existing within it. All these interceptions account for the 18 plus 18 plus 1 or 37 genes of the mitochondrial DNA. The 37 of your genes, your gateway to transformation. Now, the initial approach of the Anunnaki, Nin-Her-Sag or Ninti, sister of Enki and Enlil and daughter of Anu, was to break up chromosomes into pieces of DNA, inject those pieces into cells, and then search for ones that could replicate unaided. However, there was a problem because of the diseased genes of the Caucasus. So any DNA pieces she injected immediately infiltrated and hijacked the replication centers. This is the bit I was talking about before. It says, so Enki with Ptah or Panatharu in Afafreye Ka'a, Africa, came with the solution. Ptah knew that the circular pieces of DNA cannot hop onto chromosomes because they have no sticky ends. So he concealed Nin-Hersag's pieces of DNA inside a circular structure. That plan worked almost immediately. So then he says here, going to 178, Ptah found pieces of DNA that could replicate under their own steam, then make the DNA piece big enough. Nearly any DNA piece larger than 9,000 base pairs is able to replicate. Then Enki of the Anunnaki did his part after Ninti or Nin-Hersag made the mistake. Once done, they gave it to the Kamau, this is the Pleiadians. So now they had the blueprint also and inserted artificial structural proteins into the bacterial DNA. And when you read on, it will go to that bit I was explaining about where it was a divine plan by Ptah, the Natharu, to not only wipe off the Adamites, but to also wipe out the reptilians that would be eating them. So I know that's a bit complicated in terms of, as you say, the level of information part about the goes into, but it's going to reactivate your DNA, and you're going to start to resonate with it and use your brain.
Without all being said, well, my common sense tells me then no Negro or nigger or black man or African should mix their genes with any European or like just Hitler did, wanted to protect his race.
A lot of us are already mixed though. So it's not even about racism, because on the planet right now, you can have somebody that looks like a Negroid, but their mind and the way they act and behave is of an Adamite, and vice versa. So it's literally about Wu-Sabat is the way you're going to tell or know if you're putting it into action, you see. So it's not really just about, but you're right, in terms of protecting the genetics, we don't really encourage for you to be mixing in that way. But if you already have, or we're not like, we don't judge people and we don't get into people's bedrooms, but with the knowledge, with the right information, you should know what to do and what not to do by way of the path of that, the way.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead, sis, you had a question.
I was just going to add to say that some of the Palladians, it's like they know who they are on the planet.
Yeah. Sorry, it's because there are people online that need to hear you.
Hi there. In my experience, I've met a few Palladians that know that they're Palladians. I spoke to one a couple of weeks ago, and he said, they have been feeding off us and they won't be feeding off us anymore. So I think just to reiterate that it's part of the divine plan, and
that's right.
I think in order to keep certain races and that alive, consciousness makes a choice to do so, but it's all part of the divine plan. And I think there's a place of peace with it, because there's an end to it. It's like the contract's over.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a lady called Dolores Cannon that does say that the reptilians went beyond their contract, and they took us further into darkness than ever before, because we didn't think that they would ever be that evil. As he said, we're benevolent spirits, so we didn't think we'd ever be that dark.
Yeah.
So there's lessons in that, because the expansion is greater. She said, imagine an elastic band that gets pulled back into density, then it's only going to go and speed up and go faster. And that's why we might have felt that time has sped up, or things are moving fast, because we're moving into that expansion, also known as the awakening.
I mean, the thing is that when you study and learn about the Pleiadians, they're quite deceptive, and that's one of the problems, because right now, a lot of them, they're talking and teaching. Most Europeans will relate to the Pleiadians and talk and push the Pleiadians because they're more related to them in terms of the way they look, because obviously they're, like the Ashtar Federation and the Aldebarans, they were blonde hair, blue eyed beings. And this is, even though you have a small group of them who are agreeable, the majority of them are actually disagreeable, and they actually using a lot of deception to push this. They say they want to help people evolve because we're now in this day and time where we're evolving into the galactical community, but they're very, as I said, they're deceptive because they will lead you to a particular way and thinking that you think that they're for you, but they actually, you know, have their own ulterior motives. But this is where, again, with our classes for newcomers, it's where we get questions so that we can actually teach what the master teacher is here to teach and teach us so that we can prepare and be aware of all the things that are going on the planet and the different types of the beings and so forth. So yeah, it's really about studying Wu-Sabat and really getting to know, you know, what is what and what's going on the planet right now. Wow, time.
Okay.
So Tua, Yomi, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so could just relate to earlier something you said earlier about heaven being actual place in Orion. And you expound upon what heaven is according to Wu-Sabat and where ancestors are in Orion, how heaven is.
Yeah, again, this is where language comes into play, because even when people are saying heaven and they're given that interpretation of up there, the word comes from the word called haven, right? Haven is talking about a docking station, much like what people call the space station. So haven is talking about you going and arriving and docking on these, for lack of a better word, space stations, or going to places like Orion, or going to the constellations of Sirius or Taurus. This is where it says in in the Bible, and that they will tell you that Jesus said, "In my Father's house there are many mansions," right? But then you ask, where is Jesus? They will tell you he's gone back up. And gone back up where? Because they tell you that his Father is in heaven. And, you know, they give you these stories about him sitting on a throne and all of that. And Jesus is sitting on his right-hand side. Of course, you can't have a throne or a chair floating in space.
Yeah.
See, this is where Wu-Sabat. So and how can God, being Jesus' Father, some Christians, this is where the confusion of Bible and religion comes in. Some Christians will tell you that Jesus is God. And then they will say, which doesn't make sense, because when you start to break it and analyze it, they will say he came from heaven to earth, and when he was being crucified or going to be crucified, he prayed to his Father to ask him for help when he was saying, if it be possible, let this cup pass by me, the cup symbolizing his death or the crucifixion. So how can he be God and come here and be in heaven at the same time, then pray to himself to help himself to not be crucified, and then get crucified and go back to himself to sit on the right-hand side of himself? So obviously that doesn't make any sense. So they're talking about these places in Job 9:9, if you want to look at the quote, where it tells you about these constellations, and that's what heaven is. Heaven is actually these constellations and places where these extraterrestrials reside, and they reside in, you know, their crafts, planetoid crafts, and they dock, or the ships go and they dock, and that's what heaven is.
So when you say our ancestors are there, our ancestors are in a physical place, all right?
Tua, they're everywhere. Like we deal with Orion and Sirius because that's the main, what they call home, but they're different. There are millions and millions of stars and constellations out there, and they are, you know, they're like the highest beings, because you even go beyond physical in terms of different beings that have elevated to a height where they're pure energy beings, right? So you get different names that are talking about these different extraterrestrials, and Panda Babyanun, for example, the Ethereum or the being that guides his pen is known as Yanun. And Yanun comes from a planet called Risk, which is in the 19th galaxy, known as Ilion. You see, so, and then you have beings that, like we say, when we say Ethereans, we're saying beings of pure ether energy, pure energy beings that can materialize and slow down their vibrations and come down here and go back at will. You see, we have ancestors that, because of the limited information of you being dumbed down and only using less than 10% of your brain, a lot of us can't even begin to know how powerful these beings are. These beings, they design and create planets and galaxies, right? And so when they're telling you, God said, let there be light and let there be this, and they're the ones that were putting things into motion, putting planetary bodies in orbits, and it's a divine plan. It's like things work based on their design. So what we're being taught now is to remember who we are and remember that we have that ability to go back in terms of vibration to that state where you have beings that stay in crafts. They're called the Igigis. Then you have the overseers, and these are Parnatharu, and you have the Ethereans, which are, as I said, pure energy beings. So depending on where and what, situation we're talking about, you have different beings. Like we've already mentioned some of them, like the Anunnaki. We've spoken about different beings that came here. We talk about, reptilians, draconians, the greys, the different species of greys. You have the beings from Aldebaran. You have the beings from Andromeda. There's so many types of extraterrestrials and beings. You even got mantis-looking type beings that even now they're starting to go into Antarctica and discover and show you ancient things that they've found, temples and so forth. And with, they still they were just hidden, but now everything's been uncovered because we're living in a day of truth and everything's going to be revealed.
Okay, last I just want to try and understand. You see, like when we transition, how is it that if we're not physical, how can we go to physical? That's what I'm a bit confused by the same concept.
It's because of what you're thinking and calling physical, because you've been taught people, places, and things.
Yeah.
And that's what you relate to as physical, right?
Yeah.
So you can't think right now of existing in another realm that you don't perceive as physical, because you have to relate it to what you know, you see? Mm-hmm. So if I said to you, your body is a skin suit, which you can step out of, like you put on a jacket or a cloak and come back into it. But most people have been cut off or taught that they're afraid to step out of their body, or like, if you don't know what you're doing, you can get caught out of your body. And if you're afraid of death, you're afraid that you might, what you call, die. But
we never really die.
Exactly, because energy cannot be destroyed.
Exactly.
Right. So now think of yourself not in this skin suit that you look in the mirror and call yourself. What would it be?
Pure energy.
Pure energy, right. But there's different density to energy, because energy slows its vibration. So you have the fastest vibration, or those beings that are vibrating on that higher energy, that are on the highest level of density. You slow down your vibration to come to the physical. You see, so what I'm basically saying is that the way you exist in this realm, you're composed of the elements of the realm. So you need a body to move around in this realm.
Yeah.
So you can't see or feel what it's like in another realm. In that realm, it will be as natural to you as this realm is. And you will do the things that beings do in that realm. But because you're relating everything to people, places, and things, you're thinking, how am I going to move? What do I eat? Do I sleep? You're trying to relate things to an environment. It's like if you were water right now, right?
Yeah.
And you were living in an ocean, you're just going to blend in with water.
Yeah.
Do you understand what water does? How does water live? Because it's alive, right?
Yeah.
So other water just come together and they become water. Or fire. If you were fire, you just blend in with fire. I'm trying to give you an example, even though you're still looking at those as people, places, and things, but you're dealing with energy that is alive.
Yeah.
And you can do that with air, with the elements that we know. So, we say the soil, the air, water, fire, and then on these realms, like you can't, if I say there's a realm called a mental realm,
Yeah.
which is just pure mental. You see, Haptui was doing a class on the sacred wisdom of Tahuti, right? Which explains about, because you have to know who Tahuti is, etc. But I don't have it with me, but actually I do. Yeah, this scroll here, the sacred wisdom of Tahuti. Now, Tahuti is the being that they're called Thoth, Hermes, Trismegistus, etc. These are those beings that teach us about this. These are the realms where you go from a physical realm to a spiritual realm to a soul realm to a mental realm, and you keep going up all the way to the etheric realms.
So which realm is the highest? Orion, the higher realm of the.
So you broke up. Say that again.
Which realm is the highest? The name of the highest, the Orion.
No, Orion is not a realm like that. Orion is a constellation.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we're dumbed down, or those who are limited, they don't even know how to travel to Orion. You see, because right now, the technology that beings are using to even try, look at Elon Musk, he's still trying to launch rockets. Now, that's such primitive technology. You can't travel the distance with those rockets because you need fuel. There's no way you're going to be able to stop and refill. Like if you were traveling in a car, you go to a petrol station, you have to time your journey to say, if I'm going to Birmingham, for example, your tank is going to run out, so you have to fill up along the way. When you're dealing with intergalactic or interstellar travel, you can't use this primitive technology.
Yeah.
So our ancestors, they're way, way advanced in that, to the point where they travel. It depends on how you're traveling, but you can actually travel beyond the speed of light, or bend time, or use what they call quantum entanglement.
Yeah.
So
they have that technology, because you see pictures on hieroglyphs of them with UFO craft.
exactly, they were doing that. That's what I'm saying, that what we're calling technology today is obsolete. This is how far advanced they are. And this is why Parnabab Yanun, the master teacher, he came on the scene telling you he's from a planet called Risk.
Yeah.
And, and he explained a lot about that's our ancestors, and they came here, they seeded this planet, and we're their children, etc., etc. So he knows how to get back. And you need things called like mafkuzet, which is what was mentioned here, because when you're traveling at those, and this is all information our ancestors had and they knew, and they built the pyramids, and today now they're still trying to figure out what or how they built the pyramids and other structures. And now, they know that the time was going to come where all this information was going to be revealed, and it was timed to coincide with the sun cycle. They mummified some of our ancestors and left them to be found, so they would take their DNA to know who they were. And they've discovered that. And a lot of the information was then hidden because they don't want you to know this information. You see, so now it's all being revealed. And that's one of the reasons why they've incarcerated and kidnapped Parnabab Yanun.
Yes. Thank you. Lastly, not take up too much more time, but according to the last speech, what is the graph there?
Sorry, your line is breaking up. I didn't hear what you said. According to the master teacher,
Yeah, what is the highest realm?
I still didn't hear you.
The highest realm?
Oh, the highest realm, right. This is where 9 ether. But when we say 9 ether or ether, it's called natural ether energy. And that's 9 to the 9th power of 9. So it's not even like you can even comprehend it because, as I said, we still think about people, places, and things. Now, the scientists today, because a lot of them, because of ego and arrogance and racism and all of that, they try to act as if they're the authority on the information when they're not. And so they need to let us as the supreme beings teach because they're trying to find out what holds everything together. And they've been doing experiments with like CERN, trying to smash atoms to find out what is first, what makes it, and they can't figure out what is holding things together. But the master teacher has already told us it's ether, but the ether is at different levels. Even what people consider called darkness is at different levels. So he taught us about triple darkness years ago, and people were like, what is triple darkness? Because he was explaining this way, he was starting to teach us about ether, because the first darkness is when you're inside your mother's womb. You're in darkness and you're growing. The second darkness is when you come out and you're here on what we call inside the planet, and you have what you call night and day, which is still darkness because the darkness is the shadow hours. But then when you come outside of the planet and you look at all the stars, you still have darkness with billions of stars. But the speed of light can't even travel past that darkness. But there's different levels of darkness going further. And all of that is within ether. And that's what we're saying, that to become the pure energy being that is an Ethereum, those are the highest realm. So the 9th realm will be the highest realm, but all of that then goes into what we call the all expanding. So we say you're the all, or you're in the all, and all is in you.
Yeah.
But you're just one universe. And when you have two people there, that's dual, because 2 is dual, right? So that's a dual verse. Those two people come together. The question the sister asked before about the birth of the universe is when two people, let's say male and female, come together and they produce an offspring, right? That becomes a triverse. So each individual is a universe, 2 are dual verse, 3 is triverse. But as you keep multiplying, so now each one of those people has, let's say, a mate, and they have a child. It starts to get to a point where it grows, and we say multiverses. And those multiverses get to a point where you can't even count them, right? So we say omniverse. And this is what's happening when you look at the bodies, what we're calling like space, right? Because we're replicas of space and time, matter, and space. So you have, different planets that are birthed. The planets are birthed from way of suns, SUNs, right? And these suns, they grow and they expand, and they either explode, or they collapse, and then form what we would call solar systems. And those solar systems form galaxies, or you have many different types of galaxies. So when we're looking at the stars, you're looking at different constellations, and we're in just one called the Milky Way.
Yeah.
You see, but there are others, to the point where then you get to a universe. The universe is so vast and so large that your mind can't even comprehend that. But then there are other universes, as I've already said, going all the way to omniverses. So you to be an intelligent 9 ether, 9 mind, 9 reasoning being, it's being activated to the point where you become, this is what Wu-Sabat is here to do, to get you back to the stage that you once were, and to prepare you to travel back into that that supreme balance known as, you know, dark supreme balance. That's where we came from. That's where light comes from. You see.
So would the light explode as well?
Let me see. I think I've got other people waiting. Sorry, say that again. Yeah,
I was gonna say, would planet explode as well next year? Does the planet explode?
Sorry, you keep breaking up. You're very choppy. I can't hear what you're saying.
Will planet Earth explode as well? Planet Earth.
Oh, would planet Earth explode, did you say?
Yeah.
Well, this is why recently many people are starting to see extraterrestrials again, because you're talking about wars now, right? They've always been there. Extraterrestrials have been living on the planet, in the waters, on the surface, in the skies, above for millions of years. They start to show themselves when there's rumors of nuclear weapons, like what they've been talking about recently with, you know, the wars that are going on, which is threatening a third world war, as they call it, which has been going on anyway. War is fought on many different levels, spiritually, mentally, physically, cyber. You know, it's like, it's people are only getting concerned when it gets to a point where atomic weapons, like nuclear weapons, which if that happens, it affects all the beings on the planet. And if the planet itself gets destroyed, it affects the entire solar system. The solar system will affect the galaxy. And we're in the 18th galaxy. And the master teacher is from the 19th galaxy, which is next to ours. So when it becomes a threat that's going to affect other beings, other extraterrestrial beings, they step in because they're not really allowed to get involved with our natural development. And they will guide us by sending, you know, teachers, but only when it gets to a point where man is getting to a point of destroying the planet. So to answer your question, yes, there's a real threat right now where they might, you know, destroy the planet. It happened in Nagasaki and Hiroshima when they dropped the first atomic bombs. And at that point, that's in 1945, whatever, where you started to see a lot of extraterrestrials again, because they had to step in and deal with the leaders or the world governments to say, listen, you know, you guys, and the thing is, the more they give us information to help us evolve as a species to join the intergalactical community, the more we use the information and the power for, you know, stupid things. But I have other people with hands up, so I'm going to have to leave it. But to kind of finish off on that question, that's why it's incumbent upon us to learn the truth so that we can teach and share the information to wake a lot of people up, because, you know, we are at that point where it's a very critical time in our development as a species. We can either evolve and make it, or we can destroy it. And this is what's going on right now, where you have like all the AI and all the stuff going on the planet right now, because there's a lot at stake between now and the year 2030. All right. Joe, did you have a question?
I just wanted to just if they wanted to know more knowledge. So just if you wanted to know more knowledge, there is on YouTube, there's like loads of military men that have done loads of accounts of the UFOs coming in and disarming the nuclear weapons. And there's a lady called Dolores Cannon that matches a lot of what Master says about the ETs. So if you wanted to find out more, there's two places that you can look at on YouTube. Don't get too lost in it, because once you hear the knowledge, it's very repetitive. The truth is the truth, as you say.
True.
But that's where you can look at military accounts.
Yeah, there are many things out there. A lot of people are talking about these things now, because it's actually it's a global thing. It's not, that's why we say, like, it's not just about, you know, like racism and all of that. It's a lot bigger now, the problems on the planet. So Josie, I see you got your hand up. We're actually running out of time already, but go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question.
Okay, thanks, Samo. Quick one. I'm reading the Gold Book currently, and I find a lot of suggestions. I wanted to find out what is the best way to go about the suggestions. As Sabians, we have to follow it thoroughly, or there is any other way to handle the suggestions on the book?
The Gold Book. The thing is, We have to follow instructions. That's what today's class, again, going back to sound right reasoning. The Patarak, the master secrets, and the actual facts are the most up-to-date information. The Gold Book, as all the books that the master teacher has put out, are valuable, but they're not up to date because he has evolved the language and he has actually given us from, you know, the year 2000, what he came to give us. So, I mean, I'm saying like, reading the Gold Book, you're using old information and old tones. And so I would just say focus on the hereafter doctrine. Does that answer your question?
Yes, which is Patarak and Master Secrets, huh?
Absolutely. Part of that actual facts, master secrets.
Okay,
And then
correct.
all the other stuff around is like, you know, if you want to, is there. You can reference it and utilize it. But really, the time we have with the amount of information you have to absorb, you have to really focus on the hereafter doctrine. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Last question, anyone? Oh, let me check the chat.
Well done. Then I've got one question from that.
Go ahead, Kobe.
Yes. So Miss Batia, from my understanding so far, it's a language that continues to change. I just wanna I just want to understand more on that, and why does it change, and why has it changed, and why will it continue to change?
Okay. There are many, many reasons why. The reason it changes is because it's alive. It's a living language. And a lot of people are not used to that notion because everything you've been taught is about dead, because you're living in a society that worships the dead and everything is dead. They teach you to eat dead foods, dead animals, and you become dead because you're not alive. But nature is alive, and everything alive has to continuously grow and change. And that's why everyone would tell you that the one thing that is constant is change. So you have to change in a progressive manner, or you're going to change in a regressive manner. So the language changes because it's actually alive. And people are not used to being alive because they're used to worshiping the dead, dead books, dead information, which dumbs down your mind. And the way the master teacher teaches our language is to give your brain and keep you active and keep you working because you're alive. So because English and the dialects that you've been used to are the ones that are keeping you dumbed down under the spell, he's like, to get it out of your system completely, what he has to do is replace the English with Miss Batia, right? But to do that, instead of you remembering, every time you go to remember a word, like for example, when most people learn how to speak another language, you don't learn to speak a language by using books. You grow up as a child, you grow up and you hear the language and you're living it and you pick it up and you build your vocabulary. So you would not be like, when you're learning a language now, you will go to the English to say, what is the word, let's say, for that? You're going to still remember that to translate it into Miss Batia. So when it's alive, what it does is it will replace the word that. Like before, the word that, I'm sure used to be deek. Even now, so I remember deek. I don't really remember that. I'll remember deek. And then now it's pafeth, or pafath, which is now, you're not going to remember the English because even when you're going back to the previous word, you're going to go back to a word in Nwapik or Mispatia. And so it's alive because like you're growing and alive. So Mispatia is not only alive physically, but it's alive spiritually because you're dealing with a vibration, a frequency, and a tone. and your mind is being exercised because Wu-Sabat is a new way, and people are stuck in the old ways, and they think and try to bring those old ways into Wu-Sabat, which will never work. You know, people might be like, you lot should teach like this. You should have a curriculum and you should have the books in order so that, you know, I can learn like from 1 to 2 to 3 in a sequential manner. But the master's like, no, like they're all here. You put the pieces together. That's what makes you God, because you're part of the process. You see, so what we're saying is that Wu-Sabat is a new way. It's a complete new culture that's going to eradicate the old ways. So you have to adapt and change and be in Wu-Sabat and live in Wu-Sabat. But we're not saying there's no transition period. But yeah, I hope that's answered your question in terms of why does it change. It's because it's alive.
Tua, that's answered my question. Tata.
All right. I'm just gonna, I know we're running behind. I'm just gonna quickly check the chat to see why have indigenous Americans, so-called African Americans, begun rejecting the title of African in larger numbers. I understand that they are indigenous to the land, but why can their identity not be African as well as indigenous American? Yeah, that's because of the spell of religion and the spell of thinking that you are a location. The people say African American, but you ask them what makes you African, or which part of you is African and which part of you is American, and they get lost because it's about the DNA. It's not about where you're at. So we are actually indigenous to the entire planet, you know, and because they don't want to let go, they want to hold on to these old ideas, they feel that, oh, I'm not African, I'm American. But as you're going to see, as things are progressing, America is changing. So yeah, African Americans are African. And that's dealing with the DNA, not because of the place that you're in. Because I've always say to people, if you're born in the middle of an ocean on a plane, where are you going to say you're from? You see, it doesn't make sense when you reason it out, because we call ourselves names based on incidents or places that we're at. So we would say we're Jamaican, we're African, we're but really it's not about the location, because we come from the stars anyway. So it's about the DNA that makes you who you are. Evening, I've looked into over standard tones and chants. What else would you recommend for? What does Dr. Malachi say about left-handedness versus right-handedness? And where can I read? I'll answer that second question because we don't have that much time. We were ambidextrous before because the planet used to be balanced. So we used to use both our left hand and our right hand, our left and right brains equally. This is why when you look at the writings in ancient Egypt or the cuneiform, you will see that you can write left to right, right to left, up, down, down, up. You see, so the planet got shifted because there was an accident that shifted it to a 23-degree angle. And that's when a lot of people became mostly right-handed because of the shift. And now most people, when they stand, they will lean and go that way because of the shift. But the planet is now shifting back to its original position. So we're starting to come back into our own, but that's why most people are right-handed on the planet. Now I've got hands popping up everywhere. Right, this is definitely the last question, yeah? iPhone, Rosalind, you've got the last question. There's never enough time for Wu-Sabat. We're meant to be doing this 24 hours, 365 days. Go ahead, iPhone. Rosalind, do you want to ask a question? You got your hand up. Okay, I'm going to go once, twice. Okay, cool. I didn't see anyone on Clubhouse. But this is why we have the Telegram group. If you're not in the Telegram group, let me see. If you have, ask anyone, get in the Telegram group and we can continue to answer. We have many student teachers. Wu-Sabat is spreading across the globe, but we have to come together and our unification is going to free the master teacher. And that's what we have to do. I already gave you the link how you can help, and it's about waking up the next person, right? So unfortunately, we run out of time. So we're going to leave it there for today. But thank you to everyone that attended on Clubhouse, on Zoom, here in the class. And until next week, same time, same place. Wadu Moisa.
Wadu.
Thank you, great.
Wadu.
Thank you.
Wadu.
Bye, family. Take care.
Wadu.
Wadu.
Wadu.